It's a very warm, sunny afternoon here in California, and I'm sitting here in one of the lounges in our home, and I thought I would take a few moments just to chat with you around some of the stirrings of my heart for 2021. I'm not really the kind of guy that thinks that every year needs a theme. Most times that doesn't really help anyway, but this year's been different. Let's go back, 2020. 2020 was, beyond any measure, the craziest, wildest, most painful year, at least in our living memory, and some would argue in the last 100 years. In fact, when I sat down and started listing everything that we experienced, certainly here in the US, it's remarkable that we survived. And as I came to the end of 2020, had a few days away, I realized, wow, what a story for our little community and for the collective that we did survive. We survived a pandemic, a global pandemic that they say is more excessive than the 1918 Spanish flu. That goes back hundreds of years to show how absolutely out of control a virus can be that created a rampaging impact on the nations of the world. Very few exceptions. Added to that, we here in the US wrestled with the Black Lives Matter, the justice part, as well as the movement part. Then we had the Antifa and the kind of counter Proud Boys, more white nationalist, populist approach to politics, and the combat zone places like Portland had. I went to be with John Mark during, in fact, just after this had taken place. And Portland, what a beautiful city, was kind of boarded up and graffiti everywhere and restaurants closed. I would never have imagined in my time that that would happen in such an exquisitely beautiful, progressive city. Of course, then we stumbled into the whole idea of white privilege, political division, the political discourse, angry, resentful, bitter, mean-spirited. Now, each one of these in and of themselves would have been a challenge to the church. All of them together, a tsunami of socio-political and economic impact. Think for a moment of the number of people who lost their jobs, restaurants that were closed for months at a time, retail stores that were closed. I mean, just businesses that just disappeared, that just fell away. How on earth could a church or a collective like ours survive such a calamitous time? The travel ban, when we are based on relationship and doing life together and eating together, the travel ban prohibited us from getting to each other. The very woke idea of a new measure of morality and a new measure of culture, and then the cancel culture, pulling down statues, trying to rewrite the history books. The number of churches that were being closed. I just did some research and found out that they're estimating at least 20% of churches would close their doors 2021. In fact, 1 in 3 practicing Christians have stopped going to church. So not only is it all of these things which I've listed that were calamitous in their own right, but the impact on the church has been sublime. Tom Holland, the British historian, when interviewed recently, said this is the first pandemic where the church has not been the pioneering agent of healing and of resolutions, problem solving, ever since Jesus came to earth. I mean, I thought that was an absolutely sublime conversation. He said the NHS, the National Health Service, was started by Christians, or at least Christian inspired, out of one of those super dastardly times that hit the British Isles. And out of the love and service of the Christians, the National Health Service in Britain started. The church has by and large been invisible, or dare I say, actually unhelpfully so, and we'll talk about that in another session, aligning itself with a personality and a political party in a way that's done us a huge amount of damage. So here I am, reviewing the year, thinking about all of these things, thinking about the stunned emotional impact that it's had, thinking about the fact that young teenage girls have the highest incident of suicide 2020, I'm led to believe, Stunned by the fact that Meryl, as a therapist, is now spending this incredible amount of time seeing people, 9 today. What on earth? 2020, we survived. As a little community, I found myself crying out to God that He would take care of us, that we would make it. A young church, just a few years in, super young in age, young in duration, and praying and persistence and pastoral care and pivoting and agility as we ridden through the roughshod implications of 2020. And I went to the Lord, I said, Lord, for us as a community and for the collective in our broader togetherness, is there any word for us? I did not believe that 2021 rather, was another year in which we would just hang on bare-knuckle stuff. And I felt God say to me, son, rebuild. I said, rebuild. This is the way I saw it in my mind. Bracket, big R, big E, close brackets, build. And I thought, wow, that's an incredible word. Does it appear anywhere in the text? And God took me to Nehemiah, obviously the great builder, the third person in this chain of moving from complete Babylonian exile to restoring and rebuilding Jerusalem. And I read this in chapter 2. Then I said to them, the officials, you see the trouble wherein Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burnt with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. I then told them about the gracious hand of God on me, and about what the king had said to me. And they replied, the officials did, let us start building. So we began this good work. But when Sanballat the Horonite, Tobiah the Ammonite official, and Geshem the Arab heard about it, they mocked and they insulted us. What is this you are building? They asked. Are you rebelling against the king? And I answered them by saying, the God of heaven will give us success. We, his servants, will start rebuilding. But as for you, you will have no share in Jerusalem or any claim or historical right to it. That, dear friends, is what I honestly feel God is calling us to in this next and immediate period of time. To use the Praxis idea, we managed to ride out that initial blizzard. We coped well with the winter. And the thing we feared a little bit, the Ice Age, it's come upon us. But we survived. We've held strong. We've stood firm. We've come out of that trauma. But now the Spirit of God says, lean into rebuilding for such a time as this. In the next session, I'll explore that a little bit more. God bless you, and thanks for joining me for these few moments.